Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to G-Bear's Off-Grid Ways, a homestead in the desert. And here we are, out in the Garden of Eden. But what are we doing out here? I know you're getting tired of seeing the garden, but I'm going to be getting ready here because the moon is in the right phase starting tomorrow. And I have to do a tool time Tuesday today anyway, and I wasn't prepared for doing plastic welding. That takes a little bit of a setup, and I'll probably be doing that in the very near future for those that asked about it. So, what is Tool Time Tuesday going to be this time? Well, it's going to be about tools that you need if you're going to get into air layering and grafting. Okay, today we're going to stick mostly with air layering. We'll do grafting on another time so I don't confuse you. But you might want to get a pen and paper ready. You can pause this video, get yourself a pen and paper so that you can write down some of the things that you should have in order to make your chore a lot easier while you're doing air layering. First of all, let's start off with a description. What is air layering? Well, air layering is essentially the task of, I gotta crawl through the jungle here and run through the jungle. Okay, so let's say I want to take this branch off right here with all of the leaves on it and everything, and I want to turn that into a new tree. A new tree that will be the same age as the old tree it came off of. So I gotta have roots on it. So what I'm going to do is set up a unit on here, right in this section, and I'm going to grow roots right here in the tree while the tree is just living. It's going to grow roots there, and when the roots are grown and it's ready, then I'll come over here and I'll cut it off below the roots, and we'll get it potted into a large tree potting plant or tree pot. Plant pot, whatever you want to call it, and we're going to have that grow and establish its roots a little stronger, and then I can transplant it into the ground somewhere and grow another tree. Now, this is the pear tree that I got from Aurora that never produced. She said it produced 1 year, never produced after that. Now, this branch right here, this was one of my grafts that I did. And the graft is different than what we're doing. What I did was I cut into the tree here, and I added a scion, which is a branch clipping from another tree, which is my bosque pear over there in the corner, the one that's got 4 pears on it right now. And this is grown, because this was originally right to that knot right there. That's where it was cut off. Okay, so it was just that little piece. That's a scion. And usually with a scion, you want to try to get 3 buds, 1, 2, 3, at least that many on your scion. And you want to make a scion that has mature bark on it. You don't want to do that with immature green bark. They fail quite often that way. But if you've got the established bark on it, then it's got the juices it needs in the scion. All right, so you're probably back with your pen and paper right now. Don't worry, you didn't miss much. You're going to see it anyway if you paused. So anyway, we will be cutting this, not today. I'm going to wait until tomorrow or the next day when the moon is in the right phase, and I'll go into that if anybody wants to know about that. A lot of the old-time farmers believe that you do things like planting and grafting and things like that at a certain time of the year. The growers have been going up and down the road with trucks and trailers, and most of them are moving out of the desert. I guess they can't get water either. They can't steal it anymore. People are watching for them. So anyway, yeah, so we will be doing that and turning that into a separate tree. Then I'll also do this one later on because this tree doesn't produce. And then I'm going to cut this off next spring. I'm going to cut it off right above this graft, and I'm going to graft in a couple more apple scions and another pear scion right here at this point. And then we'll get this tree to produce the Bosc pear, the other types of pear that I add to it, and a couple of apples all in the same tree. I think that'd be cool. Oh, it looks like this graft down here actually took also. You see the little bud at the top? So yeah, it's a nice solid graft. That's an ambrosia apple. So I got an apple growing in there right now. That's cool. All right. So anyway, here's what you need. Some of the things that you should have. Okay. Now, first of all, you'll want to keep a spray bottle of rubbing alcohol handy. That is to decontaminate your tools before you start working on a tree, so that you don't add disease to your tree and kill the whole thing. All right, so I got a little spray bottle here. These are cheap. You can get them like 99 cents at the dollar store. And just keep some alcohol in it, so whenever you're going to clip or cut anything, even if you're going to be using your shears, you definitely want to spray them prior to cutting any trees or branches with it, okay? Or even your other plants like tomatoes and things like that. Okay, so this is a grafting knife. Okay, now grafting knives don't normally come very sharp. They need to be razor edge sharp. So if you're not really good at sharpening knives and you want to have a grafting knife, then you're going to have to take it to somebody who can sharpen it for you, like this one. This one is very, very sharp. I can just take a slight, let me get that in frame. I can just take a slight little shave off of that board there without any pressure. You see the polish on it. That's because I use a cloth wheel with a buffing compound for the final touch up on this. Now you want to be very careful with these types of knives because they're very, very sharp to start with. But the other thing is that it's a folding knife, as you can see. And the stupid thing that they did on these was on this back corner, you see that little flattened section on the back top of it? That's supposed to be so that you can get behind the bark after you cut it and free the bark from the tree. Well, if you push on this end of the blade wants to shut on you. And once it gets past 60% closed, it snaps shut. So if your fingers are on there, you're going to have some stitches coming. So you got to be real careful with those. So if you don't have one, you don't want to spend the money to buy one, just use a box cutter. Okay, or an X-Acto knife, either one. I like the box cutters because the blades are sturdier, they're stronger, and don't flex as much as the X-Acto knives, okay? And these are not nice because you get two sides of the blade. You can flip it over when one side gets dull and use the other half of the blade. And then when both sides are dull, you can add a whole new blade and you're back to super sharp again. And with these, you can do the same thing. You can take a very fine shaving right off of the wood. Just like that. Okay? So I would, before I'd use those on anything, I'd give them a good spray like that. Both sides, make sure you clean them up. Now these I made. You can also buy these. And these are to replace that little thing on the end of the blade for removing the bark. And I like the brass one better, but you can use aluminum too. And if you're handy like I am, you can make yourself one. You can see how the shape of it is. They're nice and tapered, but actually you can use an old worn out screwdriver. And if the screwdriver is still sharp and square at the end, just grind it down on a brick or something until it's rounded off like this, so it doesn't have any sharp edges. You don't want to cut the bark. You want to very carefully remove the bark from the trunk separate the cambium layer. All right, another handy item that you'll need while doing this air layering is a felt tip marker and a roll of plastic tape. Now this is basically all this is a small roll of saran wrap or plastic wrap. They take a big roll and they cut it down into smaller pieces, smaller rolls like this. But you'll need some of this, or you can just use some saran wrap, either way. Okay, you should have a roll of aluminum foil. You'll need that. That's to protect your cut into the tree from sun. Roots do not like sun. If the sun gets to your roots, it'll kill them, and it'll kill everything above it. So you want to make sure you're going to be able to wrap it in reflective material to keep the sun out. This is my favorite size container right here. Okay, these are the 18 ounce. Yeah, 18 ounce. And for those of you who are in other countries, that's let's see, 525 milliliters. Okay, so this is a good size for doing the air layering. You could also use one of these plastic trays that come with like mushrooms or something like that when you buy those at the store. I save all of them because they come in handy for little starter boxes for starting seeds and things like that. You just make a few holes in the bottom for drainage, and they work fine. But for this, you would not put holes in the bottom. You want it to be solid, okay? Now, if you're using one of these, you will need a large roll of saran wrap because they don't have a cover like this one does. So you'd have to use saran wrap for a cover. All right. You'll need something with water in it. Now, I like using an old soap bottle. I just wash them out really well. And it's got a little squirt nipple at the top so you can direct the water directly where you want it. And also some vitamin B1. Now, this is not 100% required. I use it whenever I damage any plants because it helps keep the plant from going into shock. So you should always have a gallon of that around for all your plants. And whenever you're transplanting, you should use your vitamin B1. Okay, next item you need. A watertight bucket. Okay, and I've got in here, I've got some potting mix. Now you can use potting mix, or you can use natural organic seed starting mix. Depending on which one you want to use, that's what you go with. You can also use cocoa coir. Now, cocoa coir is pretty expensive. So if you have it, use it because it's one of the best for starting roots. But if you need to go out and buy it, you probably want to skip it and just use some potting mix or some seed starter mix. All right? So those are the items that you will need to do this job. And you want to get all of that stuff together if you're going to follow along with me when I do this thing. And we'll get to it pretty soon. So those are the tools that you should have. Again, you don't need a grafting knife, but if you're going to get into grafting down the line, a grafting knife is very handy. And these are a little bit safer, so you can use a box cutter knife and save yourself some fear of cutting yourself with one of these, and also the task of getting it sharpened to be razor edge sharp. This is so razor edge sharp I can shave hair off my arm with it, but I'm not going to do that because I don't have a bald spot. All right, everybody, thanks for joining me. Don't forget thumbs ups down there. Don't forget to subscribe and share. This is G Bear signing off.